Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Navigating New Narratives with Raynell and Cheyenne. I'm so excited for today's episode because we're joined by someone whose work truly embodies the heart of advocacy and community empowerment. She's a passionate advocate for harm reduction, a champion for those whose voices are often silenced, and someone who knows firsthand the power of lived experience in shaping meaningful change. So please join me in welcoming a leader, an ally, a true change maker, and my mentor, Holly. Thanks for being with us.
Hi, Holly.
Thanks so much. Hello. Hello. So great to be here.
Yes, we're so happy to have you. It's amazing. Um, so I think most people know, right? Like right now, you guys work at Elevate.
Yes.
So why don't you like talk a little bit about what you do there, your positions there?
Do you want me to go first?
Sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
you go
Okay.
first.
So I'm Holly Gauvin. I'm the executive director at Elevate NWO. I've been working there since 2011. It's a pretty exciting and busy place. We focus all of our efforts on HIV, Hep C, and harm reduction. We also recognize that there's a lot of intersections when you're talking about HIV, Hep C, and harm reduction. So we do a lot of work with marginalized communities, including people who are Indigenous, people who use drugs, people who are homeless, people who are incarcerated, people who are African, Caribbean, and Black, and so on. So there's lots of intersectionality there. There's also a lot of other pieces to our work, including a really strong component around advocating for change to social housing and supporting people to get housed, as well as supporting them in homeless encampments. At the heart of all the work we do is a strong foundation of harm reduction, which is rooted directly in human rights and to a large degree feminist theory.
Yeah, definitely. And right now, what do you do?
So everyone already knows who I am. I'm Renelle Casey, and I am the Director of Outreach and Engagement at Elevate NWO. So a lot in my department, we focus a lot on outreach, of course, and reaching people more into in the community, which I think is like um super powerful. We do a lot of like supporting people and their needs in the moment and assisting them with helping them move along and advocating for them to get the services that I think that they deserve and is a human right, housing being one of them, food, nutrition, and shelter ultimately is one of the things that we focus on too. I feel like so I've been at so let me just start with a little bit of background. I started my student placement at Elevate when I remember I would say I was fairly new into my recovery kind of in regards to that. And I was nervous at first because I was like, I'm gonna be going in and confronting and seeing all of these things that I've worked really hard to kind of get away from. But once I got there, it was like instantly I knew that's where I wanted to be. And a year and a half later, here I am in this position working with vulnerable populations, folks, exact like kind of coming in with the perspective of like I've been there, I know, and I know the things that didn't work for me while I was in that lifestyle. And one of those things was people judging me
Mhm.
and trying to push me too hard in a direction I wasn't ready for. We don't do that at Elevate. We meet people where they are and we support them um, for whatever they want their journey to look like, right? So we don't pressure anybody. We just support them in making their own decisions and be there for them in those moments. So I think it's what we do at Elevate is like super powerful.
Definitely.
We take time to build rapport and get to know the folks that we work with, which is why we have such great relationships with the clients that we serve.
And prior to like the recording of this, we were talking about how right now it's a trifecta of three women Holly, Raynell, and another lady, I forget what her name was that you guys had mentioned.
Katrina.
Yeah, and you guys are kind of running the show right now. And you don't normally see that, women doing all of the work in a business that, or I guess a business or an organization or a cause that is so stigmatized, so pushed back on, and women advocating for that. We were talking about being a woman in that role and what that looks like, and how sometimes people don't like to see, a woman in with so much passion and so much drive in them to do the things that they find important and meaningful and things like that. Um, Holly, you had mentioned that um, you had gotten a lot of pushback for the work that you do. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I think that so again, been with the organization for a long time, and Elevate used to go by the name AIDS Thunder Bay, and before that AIDS Committee Thunder Bay. So it's been around since the 80s, but it was often little known, and it was just sort of this fringe organization. And we've literally been called a fringe organization, and people didn't really know a whole lot about us because it had to do with HIV and AIDS, and if that's not part of your story, people just don't tend to pay attention to it. But we really came into a lot of notoriety around our work with housing and homelessness. And so this started probably the year before the pandemic. There was some people that were camped out in a place that I guess was found not to be acceptable. And there was a committee meeting, and they were going to have police go in and have these people removed. And one of my staff just said, "So you're going to send police to remove Indigenous people from who are homeless from Indigenous land?"
Right.
And you think that's a good idea. And so, which was like awesome, like just like really nailed it. But what happened was then it was like, okay, well, maybe you and your team can go in and deal with it. And so that's how we sort of got started. We've always had lots of really good relationships with people who spend most of their days on the street, because we've always done outreach. But this was the first time really doing a concentrated effort. And so we had a pretty successful intervention there, and we were able to support the people in the way that they needed to be supportive, and that sort of started the ball rolling. But it's such a polarized issue. Homelessness is such a polarized issue, and it was like I was saying to you before we got started on the call, is that the people who don't want them in the encampments and the people who are in the encampments are actually on the same side. They just don't see it, right? They actually are 100% on the same side. And so we're this group sort of like in the middle of all of this, trying to make sense of it all, and realizing that there are some major systemic issues that are going on that are actually contributing not only to people becoming homeless, but staying there for generations. And so we did our best to work directly with the systems, but they were just unresponsive. We got a lot of double speak. We got a lot of gaslighting. We were openly lied about in the public. And so we clapped back, and we
Yeah,
clapped pretty hard. And the backlash was swift, right? So
it is.
lots of negative comments,
Yeah.
very personalized comments, not directed at the organization, but directed at me in particular. There was a lot of comments about my character and my understanding of the issues. There was a lot of comments about so-called human rights, and what people were actually talking about were not human rights, but rather their privilege. that they had privilege as a landholder or landowner. And so there was a lot of that. There was even one that they went online and they threatened to set my car on fire. And so we had a good chuckle about that. But just that sort of violence and that sort of anger is just it's actually really unbelievable, especially given the topic. You don't have to agree with me, you don't have to think that what I say is the right thing, but to want to do harm to me because I've said something that you don't like, that's sort of next level. And I do feel that women are often targets of that sort of anger and that sort of rage.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's actually a big part of a systemic overhaul that seems to be happening, particularly around human rights, and right to safety is actually a human right, and we as women have fought very hard for that right to be able to be safe from harm. And yet, if we speak up or we speak out on any issue, we're often targets of that misogyny and of that rage and of that anger. Even more upsetting, though, is when it's coming from other women, right? And so sometimes we'll see that as well. And some of that, I often wonder if that's about aligning yourself with the bully so that you feel safe for yourself. So it's a complex issue, but yeah, currently it's all female leadership, not by design, but by circumstance. But we're getting it done, and we're getting a lot of really great work done thanks to an incredible team of both men and women who are just doing amazing work and really shaking things up in our community.
Yeah, you had said somebody even followed you with a camera
Yeah,
talking.
yeah. So one of our members came with me one day. It was on a weekend. There was some community members that were very upset about a mess that was in sort of this bush area, and I feel like maybe they walked their dog up there or something. And the city contacted us, and so we went out there and went to do a community cleanup. And while we were there, this woman had followed me, and it was quite a lengthy way to follow me, but all the way up the hill, screaming and yelling all the way, and saying that it was our fault that that mess was there, and not seeing the work that we were putting in on our day off, trying to and it's not our responsibility to pick up after people, right? But not seeing any of that, but rather just being angry. And another time, another woman came right up to my car. And while I was leaning over into my car to get things, she was like leaning in my car and getting in my face. And I had to tell her that if she didn't step back, I'd call the police because this was my workplace and she's interfering with my work. So, yeah, my staff have been photographed. We've had probably one of the most upsetting things we had two Indigenous staff, two non-Indigenous staff, myself included, out doing encampment support one morning. And my two Indigenous staff just happened to be cleaning up some of the garbage. And this woman and her dog walked by, and she had to make the comment, there's a lot of jobs at Walmart, right? These are staff people that are working, right? And she had to trip over the white staff in order to get to the Indigenous staff in order to make that comment. So it was really, and we were all sort of dressed the same way, we're all in our outreach gear, but yeah, she just made an assumption. And so, yeah, my staff has put up with an awful lot. We've had even from some security places, we've had some issues and stuff like that made, lots of intimidation, that sort of thing. So yeah, it's not super fun to be on that side of it, but at the end of the day, those aren't the people that we're trying to reach. So my staff and I are really good at just shaking it off and staying focused on who we are trying to connect with and whether or not they're getting what they need. The greater population is not our target audience.
Right. And the thing is for Raynell and I, that is our target audience, is the general population with this podcast.
Good luck.
I know. And with our online presence and with our everything that we're doing, like every move that we are making is for the general population. And like for us, those are the people that we want to reach. It's like, how does I feel like trying to put myself in their shoes. Like, have you ever done that, Ray, where you've tried to like put yourself or Holly in the shoes of the person saying the stuff, like where that could be coming from? Like, and the only thing that I can think of as you guys as an organization is that they think that you guys are helping the problem. Like you guys are actually like making the problem continue and get worse, which is absolutely so backwards and like that coming from an organization, but then to attack someone's character, like you said,
Mm.
they attack your character, they attack my character like crazy. I have not seen anybody attack Raynell's character yet, but if they do, like I will come for you. But they've attacked Raynell and I in direct ways with the work that we're doing in our podcast. And it's like, where do you wake up in the morning and go online? And even if there's something that I see that I'm like, ugh, there's nothing inside of me that has any inkling to want to reach out and say mean and hurtful things to that person to make them feel worse about themselves. Like I just can't wrap my head around it. Like I really can't, like even though I am angered at the things that are said about the people in the vulnerable population. I know Raynell is angered by the things that are said, and so are you. I don't know, Holly, but I'm assuming you are too as well. Angry as we are, we're not doing that. Like we would never go and do that towards the other side. So like I just don't get it. Like I just have such a hard time. And like to character assassinate, like what is your goal? What is the goal? Like is it just to make yourself feel better or is it to actually um thinking that maybe you're going to stop us from doing what we're doing or what? Like or
I
you just
think
have
Holly had kind of touched on it before. I think it's just like a lack of awareness and education in regards to what they're saying is they don't actually know the whole background. So I would say that a lot of people might think that we're contributing to the problem, but actually no matter what, the problem is there. And I think it's like systemic that those, like Holly had mentioned, that those issues are happening. Like realistically, we're trying to make people comfortable in the situations that they or the circumstances that they find themselves in as a result of systemic barriers that are put in place
yeah,
that actually prevent people from moving forward or put them in that situation.
mhm,
Like, I know in my department, and Holly knows this as well, like we work on this all the time, is like how to help people move through the barriers that are placed in front of them, I think strategically. And I might be bold by saying that.
yeah,
Um, we see this problem getting larger and larger, but really like as an organization we can advocate and do as much as we can to help change policies, but ultimately it's not our organization that has those policies that are in place that are resulting in people being in the situations that they are. So it's frustrating because we're working to help move people forward, but again, there's so many barriers and like and I'll say this, I think like with housing, like the arrears situation is one of those things.
yeah,
People being removed and then banned from applying for housing for 5 years, that's a problem. And some of like it's just so frustrating, and I can go on about this forever, and I'm sure Holly can chime in on this, but people I think hold us um as an organization accountable for making the problem worse, but we're not. We're trying to help people for the circumstances they find themselves in, sometimes out of no fault of their own, I feel like, because it comes from a systemic place.
ultimately
which
what
is
we're
frustrating. Policies that are in place are hard to work around and actually don't help people. It doesn't help people. And that's what we're trying to do is help people.
I think ultimately
So
as
Renelle's
oh go ahead, Holly.
I was just going to say, I think Renelle's nailed it. I mean, I think that there's a few things that are going on there, right? So it's the lack of awareness about the policies and the hoops that people need to jump through. That's absolutely part of it. But I also feel like it's become really fashionable to troll people and to go negative and to demean people. And I mean, yeah, that's always been the case. Probably as long as there's been humans, there's been somebody who's out there being a troll, right? But I think that it's become very fashionable, and I mean, we're certainly seeing it on a political level, both at home and abroad. And so I think that people are just sort of taking up that. It's cool to be a bully mentality and really just spreading it. And one of the more vulnerable populations would be the people who are using substances, the people who are out on the street most of the day, the people who are homeless or houseless, right? So it's easy, it's fashionable, and it's also, I feel like the problem has been growing and growing and growing because we've always just done things in half measure. So, of course, we're never going to get in front of the problem. We just barely put band aid on a cancer. But because it continues to grow, people say, look, see, it doesn't work. And it's like, well, no, if harm reduction and these sort of proactive approaches were funded at the same level as abstinence based programming, then we would see a marked shift and a big difference. But it's much easier when the program continues to grow to vilify the people who find themselves in those circumstances than it is to look at ourselves and say, how can I contribute to making it better, to helping end this madness? How can I do that? It is very hard when we have to look within
Yeah.
to recognize that we are absolutely part of the problem, that we do contribute knowingly or unknowingly to the status quo and to holding up these systems that continue to disadvantage certain groups of people. We are all part of that problem. And so, yeah, it's much easier to just say, oh, they're a drug addict, or, oh, they're just bad people. Those people are just like that. It's so much easier to do that because then you write it off and you write off any sense of responsibility,
Mhm.
right? Then you don't have to do it, right? You don't have to do the work.
And what I was going to say was what Raynell and I are doing here with what we're doing, and then what you and Raynell are doing at your work. All we're doing is we're trying to help the victims of the larger picture. We're just helping the very byproduct of what is
Yeah.
happening all the way up. So
Yeah.
so really we're just taking care of someone else's mess and getting blamed for that mess and helping
Yeah.
the victims of that mess. Like,
Yeah.
that's what people are not understanding here. It's like, it's not them, it is not us. It's none of our responsibilities, including the people that are on the street, including myself, you, and the organizations. It shouldn't even be on us. It should be on the government, the institutions, the way things are run and done.
Yeah.
Those are the things that are holding all of this in place and allowing it to happen. And then it's trickling downwards to the very bottom. And we're like, hey, let's help these like harmless people, victims of this system, and do our
Yeah.
little bit that we can to help. And that's all. And that's all we're doing. And we're being completely villainized in all ways, shapes, and forms when we're not the villains. We're all the
Yeah.
anger is being directed in the wrong place. And it's at the people who are, it's like the victim of a crime. It's like attacking the victim instead of the criminal. It makes no sense. That's
I
my
think that there's also like certainly certainly in our case, there's also a really lack of awareness of what harm reduction actually is.
Yeah.
People think harm reduction is that we believe everybody should be able to take drugs. And
No.
that's absolutely not harm reduction. Harm reduction is just simply saying that if this is the choice you're making, this is going to be the safest way for you to do that, and to cause the least possible harm to yourself, right? Because as long as you are here on this planet, then we can continue to work on things. And maybe it's always just going to be that, for you, you're going to continue to use, but, you're not going to necessarily be homeless, right? You're not going to, be food insecure. You're not going to catch or spread an infectious disease, right? So it could be as simple as that, or it could be that you are a person who is destined for recovery, and that by continuing to engage you wherever you are at, we're the most likely spot that you're going to come back to in order to get that help. What harm reduction is keeping everything on the table, and we're in the middle of a huge epidemic. Like it's so understated,
Yeah.
the true devastation of addictions, right? We only ever talk about the first layer, which is the people who overdose and die, or the people who end up in jail, that sort of thing. We're not talking about like the trauma that it inflicts on families, on communities, on neighborhoods. So and the deleterious effect that it has on people's mental health as a result of that, and being bystanders in all of this. So we never ever talk about that stuff. So, but we're in the midst of all of this, and we're talking about reducing harm reduction,
Yeah.
right? Because there's no, it's currently popular to say it doesn't work, except that we've got decades of science
We do.
that backs up that harm reduction does work, right? We have that. The other thing is when we look at things like funding. Funding is a major tool of oppression,
Yeah.
and so you look at the funding, and so supervised consumption sites got closed this year in favor of the hard hub models. Now, I have no problem with more resources for people who are homeless. That's definitely not an issue.
Yeah.
What I do take issue with is that they weren't allowed to do harm reduction.
Yeah.
And what I do take issue with is that abstinence-based programming receives $6 million, whereas the programs that were doing all of the same things plus harm reduction get under $1 million. So this is what I'm saying. So you sit there and you underfund programs year after year after year. The problem continues to grow, and you blame the program rather than, again, a system, right? And the truth of the matter is that our government is never going to put up as much money as the drug dealers are. And so there's no way, like it's true,
It's
it's an
true.
investment. Drug dealers will always come up with a hell of a lot more money to fund this than governments will to fund an end to this.
Yeah.
And so we have to keep all options on the table, including harm reduction. And my staff have gotten many, many people into treatment programs, because when the people were ready, we were the people that they came to, because they knew that we were there for them when they were actively using, and that we're going to be there for them when they're not using. And so, yeah, harm reduction is about keeping all options on the table. And it's interesting that we draw the line around substances. There's a lot of things that people do every day that are illegal, that are harmful, that we all just kind of shrug our shoulders, turn a blind eye to. We talk about the one of the reasons that they closed down the harm reduction sites or the supervised consumption sites was because of
Close to.
uh,
Perfect.
community safety issues, which was total baloney.
Oh, totally.
So there was a shooting incident near one of the supervised consumption sites, but I challenge it because there's been shootings at McDonald's, there's been shootings at hospitals, shootings at high schools, shootings at malls,
Yeah,
shootings in parks. We don't close all those spaces down.
right.
So one incident, and here we go. We're going to close this down. So this was a political move. It wasn't about community safety. This just makes for a really good soundbite for all the people who want the kind of tough on crime mantra, who don't necessarily understand the systemic issues behind where we are at when it comes to addiction, when it comes to the mental health crisis that we're in, when it comes to housing and homelessness, right? And so all it does is further polarize people. And again, I go back to what I said at the beginning. The people who are living in the encampments and the people who don't want them there, they're on the same team. They
Yeah,
don't recognize it, but they're on the same team.
yeah, they don't want to be.
Nobody wants them there.
Exactly. Nobody wants to live in a tent, trust me. And they go, oh, well, how come I have to pay to go and go tenting with my family and I have to pay for my tenting site and they get a free tent?
Trade ya.
Come on, dude. Like, let's get serious.
Trade ya.
You know what?
100%.
Go and live in that tent for a year with your family and tell me that you think that they are privileged in some way, shape, or form. And you know what's really
Most people wouldn't make it a week.
no, and you know what's really crazy? I remember like when I was in active addiction, I remember thinking to myself because like before I was in active addiction, like I had a pretty good like like I had money, I always could feed my like I was okay, like I was well taken care of. And I remember as soon as I became homeless and I was an addict on the street, I remember just like being so baffled at the fact that it was like people didn't think that I was even worthy of getting like a hamburger or like I wasn't even worthy of getting like anything. Like I just
Yeah.
every basic human right, it's like they say because you do drugs, you can't have anything else. You can do your
Yeah.
drugs and that is it. That is it. Now you have to be laying on the street with your
Yeah.
drugs. You don't have right to a shower. You don't have right to clean clothes. You don't have right to house. You don't have a right to like nothing. Absolutely nothing. And like and it's just I'm gonna tell a story and it's gonna be a really controversial story. Very, very controversial, but that's
I
okay.
love it already.
All right, perfect. So I I was really grossed out by the way that addicts were treated while I was an addict. Very grossed out. So I used to like hitch rides on the side of the street when I was homeless, because how else would I get around? So I hitched a ride. So I got into this man's truck and I'm like, man, I'm so hungry. Like I haven't eaten in like 1 or 2 weeks. Can you buy me like McDonald's, like a McDonald's meal? And he's like, no, like I don't have a lot of money. Like I can't buy, like I can't just be buying people stuff. Like you're already in my car for a ride. Like I'm driving you where you gotta go. I was like, okay. Then I'm like, well, how about, you know, do you like, do you like want to do a trick? Like people that know from the streets what a trick is. Like, do you want me to do something for you for $20 so I can buy myself that McDonald's? And he's like, yeah, sure. So he pulls over, takes his $20 out of his wallet, and I kid you not, I snatched the $20 out of his hands, opened up the truck door, and I turned around and I looked at him and I showed him the $20 and I said, "I want you to know and I want you to remember that you wouldn't give a homeless person $20 to buy a meal, but you would give a homeless person $20 to suck your dick. I hope you have a really great day." And I walked away. And that's a really controversial story, but that is disgusting. Is that not disgusting? Like that's
Yeah.
how low. It's like that's what we're worth. Like as somebody who does drugs. Like we're not even worth a McDonald's meal. But how gross is the person on the other end who would give the
Yes.
$20 for that?
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like that's disgusting.
it's
And I'll,
crazy
and
that
I'll
that
remember that to this. I'll
happens.
remember that to this day. And I remember exactly where I was. I was right on Rowan Street, right by that school, right by um, Norwest Community Health Center, right there. And I remember exactly where the truck parked. I remember exactly doing that. And I just thought to myself, like, man, people are just disgusting. Like they're just, and then sometimes like when I'd be asking for like a ride, they would like almost run me over and I'd just be like, I'd be like, what the hell? Like, I'm human. Like, help me. Like, like they don't
Mhm.
even look at you as a human being. You're nothing. You're literally dirt on the ground to them. And it blows my mind. Like, it literally blows my mind. And yeah, Reina, I know you have something to say.
Yeah, so I just want to kind of talk about a situation that I experienced a month ago and maybe even longer because I was going to post this because I was like really upset about it that this
Yep.
happened. But I was at a Tim Hortons and if I have change, I will always, if someone's standing there, I give them change. And I did that one day. And this lady behind me started screaming at me for helping somebody, like, and was mad at me. They're just going to keep doing that more and more. The more people that help them, it's just going to be a problem. And I was just sitting in my vehicle and I was like, what is happening right now that someone is actually taking the time to like hang out of their vehicle and yell at me for helping somebody in need? Like it has no bearing on you. Don't worry about it. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. But I just like I couldn't believe it. Like they could have just sat there and rolled their window up if they didn't want to. I'm not saying everybody has to do that, but I am the type of person who will do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um it's so frustrating because we talk about like stigma and judgment so often on this podcast. And when we just talk about Cheyenne and I had mentioned previously before in a different podcast that if we see an injured animal on the side of the road, every person, for the most part, will either take the time to help that animal, take that animal in, or call somebody who can help.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
do that for animals, but we don't treat human beings the same. And I think it comes back down to understanding that um this is a systemic problem that's happening. And Holly talked about it perfectly. Like there's not enough funding to go around in regards to actually getting ahead of the problem. The best we can do, unfortunately, and this drives us all crazy, at least at our organization, the best we can do at times is put a band-aid on a situation when we know it's not going to fix the problem.
Mhm.
But it's all that we have at the time to offer because there's not funding to get ahead of this problem. People aren't looking at the bigger picture and what can actually help. So
Have you
that's
seen
why
the
it keeps
comments on
growing and it's frustrating.
Have you seen the comments on the animal one that we did? Because we made a clip of that. And then they say, oh, well, that's
I never
oh,
I
they
never look at the comments because I don't want to see
oh,
negativity. So I don't usually look at the comments.
they
I
say,
don't look at
oh,
the comments. And I
that's
know
because
you and I are different in
that's because
that.
animals
Yeah.
can't think for themselves. That's because animals are innocent. That's because humans can make their own decisions. Humans are choosing to
But
make
is it a decision? But is it a decision when
exactly.
you're forced because of systemic pressures and because of systemic policies, you're forced by circumstances to do things that would normally not be in your mind, but you're forced to. So the person who is out there in the homeless encampment because they're on a 5-year ban from social housing, and yeah, maybe they take some wood out of your backyard. Normally, they wouldn't dream of doing it, but when you're cold and you're tired and you have nowhere else to go, maybe you do.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I think that you guys are really getting to the heart of something called the concept of the deserving poor. We love charity, right? We absolutely love charity, but it really has to go to people or things where we feel they're deserving, right? And
So we're
so,
animals.
this notion of human rights, yeah. The notion of human rights is something that's really, really lost on society right now. People, one of the greatest things could happen in our education system is a really good civics lesson, and I think that all graduates graduates, like 5, 10 years after graduation should have to go back and retake it. I've even heard at city council meetings, people claiming things as human rights that are not rights. And so, yeah, the concept of human rights, that everybody has the right to food, shelter, and safety.
Mhm.
We only believe in that to a point. So we believe in that for the little old granny who lost her home because her husband died and she's not getting the pension for some reason, right? Then we all feel for that person, right? Or the family who lost their home tragically because of a fire. We feel for that, right? And we should feel for those.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. We don't feel for it when the person is like middle aged and, to our minds, they look able bodied and that they should just be able to go out and get a job. What we don't understand is all of the hoops that they have to go through and all the ways that they get turned away. We expect the person who's living in the homeless encampment to roll out of their sleeping bag first thing in the morning in the encampment, cold and stiff and unbathed for sometimes weeks on end. And we expect them to go down and apply for a job. And we actually expect an employer to employ them. Like, give me the name and number of that employer because I got some people for you. I really genuinely do. Because there are people at my doorstep every day asking for work,
Right.
right? Happy to do it because we don't judge them, right? We know the circumstances that we're in. And so if their clothes are dirty or maybe they're having a rough go of it. We get it, right? But most employers are not going to employ people who are in that state, and so we expect that, and then we get mad at them. You haven't figured this out yet, and it's like nobody's giving me a break along the system, and then they yell at us because we slap a tent around them and hand them a bagel,
Yeah.
and we're enabling. Well, no, we are enabling people to be as safe as they possibly can in really unsafe situations. If that's an enabler, then I'm a very proud enabler. We enable people to access healthcare. We enable people to access harm reduction supplies so that we reduce the spread of infectious disease in our communities. You're welcome.
Yeah.
Yes, we are proud enablers, but it is very, very frustrating that people have such a narrow view of what's going on. And so Raynell said it, it frustrates the hell out of us that the best that we can do is, these Band-Aid solutions. And so we've come out swinging more at a policy level now. And so that's where we need to take the fight, right? This is policies, this is political, this is way upstream. This isn't just, the local service provider or the local folks. This is way upstream that we need to push this fight and we need to demand better for our people who are vulnerable. And so, yeah, so we're doing a lot more political advocacy. We're doing a lot more speaking out. We're showing up on calls like this and spreading the word in the hopes that we are reaching that broader public audience to say, hey, all things are not equal. People who are out there, people who are struggling, it isn't what you think. It isn't what you think. This isn't people often say that it's selfish or it's, name the stigma, name the judgmental tone. We hear it all, but people aren't necessarily appreciating where people are coming from and the systemic, long going intergenerational trauma that people have been under. And this is all before we even introduce the subject of racism in our community and in our country. So yeah, it's a complicated issue, but we really need to start going at it at the policy level
I
because
think
that's where change will really affect people.
definitely.
Absolutely, yeah.
One thing that boggles my mind too is like, if you think about it, like people that saying addiction is a choice, there's like a problem with saying that it's not a choice, but there's a problem with saying that it's a choice as well. But if you look at someone and you see, you can't see inner things going on inside someone's head. You can't, you don't know anybody's story. You don't know anything that has happened to that person in their life or trauma, mental health issues. These are things that you cannot see. But when you see somebody struggling as bad as we do, like all sometimes they post them all over the internet or we see them all in plain sight. How is it in your brain? How does your level of thinking go to the fact that that person wants to be there. They're bad, they're gross, they're disgusting, something is wrong with them. How does it not go
Yeah.
to? How does it not go to? Oh man, when I was born, I was brought up in a home. I had clothes, I had food in my lunch, I got to go to school, I had friends at school, I went to college.
Mhm.
Maybe I didn't even have that great of thing, but I had stuff. How does it not go to? I wonder how much hardships that person has been through, how many things they don't have accessible to them, i.e., parents, loved ones, a home. Maybe they were kicked out at like 16. I wonder how their mental state is. I wonder how sad they are. I wonder how much in pain they are. I wonder how ashamed and guilty they feel for the drugs that they're on, how hard it is to need those drugs every day in order to numb themselves, and the things that they
Mhm.
have to do in order to get those drugs to stay numb because they're so broken and sad.
I
How
Mhm.
does
think,
your brain
Diane,
go somewhere else? I don't, yeah, go ahead, Raynell.
I think, Cheyenne, what you're saying would be so lovely if people would do that, but I don't and what bothers me is like I don't even know why it has to go that far. Why can't we just be kind to people without trying to guess their background or their story and just know, okay, this person has obviously gone through a lot, but why can't we just be kind to people regardless of who they are, regardless of their circumstances,
Oh,
regardless of the
exactly.
way they look, regardless of any of those things?
Yeah.
Why can't we just treat everybody the
I'm just,
same, no matter what walk of life you're going through?
yeah.
And it's super frustrating,
Oh,
right? It's
and
super
I'm just
frustrating.
wondering where like the hate comes,
Yeah.
Yeah.
where you don't see any of that, but you see something completely opposite. Like everything that I just said, you see it like, oh, they just freaking partied all their whole highs. Like the stuff that people say, like, how do you
Yeah.
make this up in your brain? Like, where does this come from? And like, I know it's hard when it's an inward problem, like mental health has a lot of stigma as well. Like substance use is an inside problem because you're doing something to numb the inside, and the substance use is just like a byproduct of that. But I think that each and every person on this earth knows what it feels like to suffer with some sort of mental issue, sadness, anger. Like everybody's been through stuff. And then they use that as an excuse. Well, everybody's been through stuff. Yeah, well, everybody hasn't been brought up we're all not carbon copies of each other, you know? So like you can't use that
Mhm.
as an excuse to say, well, we've all been through things. So they should just suck it up. Or they
I
can
think I I think Holly kind of said it perfectly. It's easier for people to turn a blind eye to those circumstances so
yeah,
no one has to take accountability or take responsibility and say like, how can I help? How can I step in?
right.
People just don't want to do that. It's easier just to blame the individual itself instead of looking at the broader picture. Because once we look at the broader picture, we see there's problems. And when there's problems, there need to be solutions that are actually going to make a difference. People don't want to do that because it's easier to turn a blind eye and just focus on yourself and your own life. And it's unfortunate that our society is like that. Then we have the few people or people like ourselves, like Elevate, other organizations who take the time to look at the individual themselves on a more humanistic level and understanding like we should just be kind to people regardless of their circumstances. Like we have all different walks of life that walk into our agency and we love them all.
Yeah.
Everybody. No matter if they're having a bad day, we don't judge people on their bad days. We understand that's going to happen and
Exactly.
that's okay. We support them through that. We have the conversation and like
Yeah.
it's just yeah, it just like makes my heart so heavy
It does. It makes my heart
because
heavy.
it just like yeah it's hurtful for me even and like I have a problem sometimes like internalizing things and um I'm often like the individual who will put myself in everybody's shoes and it's draining for me to do that sometimes but I do that
Yeah.
because also like I've been there.
Yeah.
Cheyenne, I know you have too. Like we both have different stories, but similar in certain regards. But I think that's what makes it easier for us to not be able to turn a blind eye because we were those individuals before. We
Right.
know what it feels like. Not to a T, everyone's situation and circumstances are different, but um, yeah, I just
I,
like,
empathy.
and I guess like this has been happening since like the dawn of time.
Yeah.
People have judged people, and like we see it from like I can just like all back in the Roman times, like there's always been this fight human against human, and I'm just like, oh my God, I just wish it didn't have to be that way, but it's such like ingrained into our DNA to have that, and it's just makes me sad. I
It
don't
does.
know. I don't know what else to say. It makes me sad. Yeah.
Holly, do you have any lived experience at all? I know I thought I heard in her introduction that you had.
I have some lived experience around being homeless.
Okay.
I have some lived experience around suffering with mental health issues. I haven't had experience living with substance use, but yeah, the other things have definitely been part of my life.
Yeah.
I've been working with people with lived experience for many years now. And when I say working with them, I mean not just delivering services, but working shoulder to shoulder with them. You said it really well earlier, Cheyenne, when you said, like everybody has this experience at one time or another. If you think about mental health as a continuum,
Yeah.
we're going to find ourselves throughout our life
Mhm.
jumping on and off that continuum, having these experiences where our mental health maybe isn't as strong as we'd like it to be, right? And so nobody's really in a position to judge. And it used to be the old stats. This is pre-COVID stats. It used to be 1 in 4 Canadians had a mental health condition, and I used to always say that's because the other three haven't been diagnosed yet.
Yeah.
The truth about the matter is that we all have these experiences, but depending on your location in life, your social location, you may or may not have access to things that help you recover faster and with more ease. You may or may not be in a position to coast through that mental health crisis without everybody around you knowing it, seeing it, pointing it out, and ridiculing you for it. And so I think that, a lot of what the two of you are saying really points to privilege and
Oh,
people not necessarily understanding privilege. They think because I work really hard to buy my house, that's not privilege, right? But no, actually being a landowner or a landholder is a privilege, right? Being able to be, as safe as I feel every night when I go to bed,
yeah.
knowing where my next meal is going to come from, and knowing that if I really don't like what's in my cupboard, maybe I can go and I can get that burger, and that nobody's going to think twice about me rolling up and getting a burger, right? Nobody's going to think about, well, how dare you do that when, you are so poor or when you are maybe getting social assistance, right? Like nobody thinks twice about that when I do those things. Those are all pieces of privilege. The fact that I can open up a magazine and I can see my culture represented very well,
Right.
that I can walk into any room, any grocery store, pretty much anywhere in town and be, either welcomed or maybe just kind of ignored, like neutral.
Yeah.
These are all pieces of privilege that I carry, not because I earned them,
Right.
but because I was born white,
Back.
because I happen to be middle class,
Right.
because I happen to be able to be fortunate enough to go to school, get
Yep.
a university degree, get a good job, and to be able to be out there. Yes, I worked hard for all those things, and I'm not minimizing that we do work hard for what we get. But at the same time, a lot of those things were afforded to me simply by virtue of my skin tone. And this is something that is so
Socioeconomic
often
status.
forgotten.
Skin. Yeah.
Absolutely.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely. As a white middle class woman of a certain age, I can pretty much go in anywhere and I say and do what I want and not be threatened
And that,
with police and not be, challenged.
and does that not enrage you? Like that enrages me. Like that enrages me so badly because I think to myself, and it enrages me in the fact of people say like, oh, like look how great you're doing in your recovery. And it's like, yes, okay, I am. Like I am very proud of how far I'm going, how goal oriented, like how like everything Brynell and I are doing, like what I'm doing with school, all this stuff. Could I be doing this with Raynell? Could I be going to school for a master's? Could I have my children back in my care within the first, I want to say, 5 months of sobriety? Could I have done any of this without my privilege? No.
Mm.
There was hard work behind
And
it,
that's
but I had privilege as well. The privilege of a father who supported me to go through all of that stuff. I had the privilege of living rent free where I could save a lot of money and work. I have a privilege of having a beautiful, amazing business partner who wanted to start this with me.
yeah,
And now me and her are reaching for the stars together. This is privilege. Not everybody
yeah,
is able to do this. And I'm
yeah,
thankful for that. And people think, oh, it's just because I worked hard. It's just, anybody can do that. They just need to pull up their socks and, get on it. No. I'll tell
It's
you,
honestly,
no.
it's the biggest falsehood out there. It's extremely, extremely frustrating.
Yeah.
And it really, we should be spending a lot of time just really understanding our own privilege.
Yep.
And there are places where I'm not privileged, right?
Yeah.
There are definitely places where, I still have some disadvantage in this world. But by and large, most places, most spaces, I am absolutely more advantaged than others. And so that doesn't mean I have to be ashamed of it, but it does mean that I bear a bit of responsibility
Yeah.
for making sure that I'm using that privilege in the best possible way and to help advantage other people.
That's what I mean.
Right. And so that's all we're saying. It's not a threat to your privilege, right? It's not a threat to your way of life.
Yeah.
Just not being a bigot, right? Like if nothing else, just don't be a jerk.
And when I say that it enrages me is that what about the people that don't have what I had? What about the people that don't have what Raynell had when we got sober? Like that is what enrages me. And then people look at me and they use me for inspiration and then they say like, well, I can't, like, yes, you can. Yes, you can. Let me help you. Let's figure this out because I know you have so many barriers, but because of my privilege and the things that I know, and Raynell, I send so many people to Raynell that want to go to college. I'm like, Raynell did it. Go talk to her. Go.
Mm,
She knows. She'll get you through
yeah,
it. She'll figure it out with you. Like we will help you. That's what we're here for. And that's the only part that enrages me is that it's just like not everybody has that privilege, but everybody deserves that privilege. That's what it is. Raynell, go ahead. Sorry. I know.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I just want to kind of talk just a little bit. So and I don't think I've mentioned this on here, but I'm am an Indigenous female, but I'm very white presenting.
Yes.
And a lot of the time right now we're talking about privilege, and I've experienced situations where I've made it in certain areas or have gone treated a certain way because I'm really white presenting, but the minute that I talk about my Indigenous background, you can see sometimes
Mhm.
people are more standoffish or they're more like they're judging a little bit in regards to that. And they're like, oh, well, good for you that you're Indigenous and you're here. Like as if they thought it was impossible. And I'm just like, what is happening right now? So like, and yeah, I'm
Yeah.
just like, what the heck? Or people will be making comments, and I'm just like, excuse me, I'm an Indigenous female, and people are just like caught off guard.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I'm like, I'm white presenting, and I wish that I was a little bit more not so white presenting, just so like I can represent my communities just a little bit better because people don't expect it.
Yeah.
But and I hear just some negativity, and I'm just like,
But I think that
it
makes you
just,
um, very much qualified to speak on that because of that, because you can see both sides, right? Like, yeah, which is like
Well, I'm going to just talk a little bit about identity in regards to my experience. Um, so there's like for a long time I really struggled with who I was as an individual being indigenous on my father's side and then white presenting is I wasn't really taught much about my culture, so I always felt kind of like disconnected from a major part of like who I am as a human being. Um so, and that's difficult. I don't think people take into accountability like how important identity is when we're finding our way in life.
Yeah.
So it's difficult, right? So there's always like a really large part of myself who I'm on this journey right now in learning more about like my culture, who I am as an individual. But my dad, who's passed on now, like rest in peace, I miss him all the time, had gone through residential schools. And a big part of me not being taught much about my culture and my identity is because my dad thought it would be easier for me to be separated from it.
Wow.
So when we talk about generational traumas and detachment from identity for Indigenous individuals or people in general, it's hard and it's frustrating because like there's a big part of who you are um that you don't know about. So
Yeah.
now I'm on this journey on my own, trying to learn about my culture and who I am in regards to that. So that's also been difficult. So it's a little bit off topic about what we're talking about, but I think it's important that we acknowledge that has happened. And
I don't think it's off topic. I think it's actually part of
Me too.
the experience of so many of the people that we serve, right? Is there's this we see a lot of our members are white passing or yeah, have a mix of indigenous and non-indigenous in them, and so they're not accepted fully within their own communities all the time, but they're also not accepted within mainstream culture either. And
Right.
so it's you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. Where do you belong, right? And so without that sense of belonging, people really don't need a lot in life. They really don't. They need safety and security and all those things like food, shelter, and safety. But beyond that, they need purpose. So
Yep.
something to do every day. It doesn't matter whether it's volunteer, school, work, whatever your purpose is. They
Yep.
need a purpose and they need a connection. They
Yep.
need a community. Even if they're not necessarily actively engaging. I mean, we see that a lot in our drop-in center where people will come in and you can tell they just want to be part of things, but they want to be standoff. They don't want to jump right into the mix because maybe they're shyer, but they want to still belong to communities. So you have people like Raynell, you're describing yourself, as this person with this identity that's complicated, right? And so without that feeling of like I belong here, how do you ever get your feet up from under you?
Yeah.
You just don't, right? You're just spinning.
I kind of have like an offshoot story. Now that I live in Southern Ontario, it's very diverse here. Like I know Thunder Bay is getting very diverse, but Southern Ontario has been diverse forever. Um,
Ever.
yeah, forever. So I'm sitting with my coworker, and like me and her get along like instantly. Man, this girl is like so freaking cool. Like she's awesome, and she's East Indian. She's from a part of India. I don't know. She says it's the best part. She's like, it's this little tiny country right here. And then she's telling me and then I'm like, okay, well, tell me about India. Like, she's like, we speak 29 languages in India. And I said, so if you go to, so if you go to a store in India, you could like be like having somebody beside you that you can't even communicate with because you speak two different types of languages. She's like, yeah. I'm like, that's crazy. Like, and we were just like, she's like, you, and then this is the part of the story. This is like the meaning of the story. She goes, you are my only friend that I've ever had who is white. And you're the only person who has ever asked me about my culture as a white person. And then she says, because you're my only white friend, can I ask you a question? And I said, sure, go ahead. And she asks me this insanely personal question, but I don't want to repeat it, but it's like insanely personal. And I'm like, yeah, and I just give her my answer and I'm like talking to her and like And and that's what she said. She said, you are my only white people don't talk to us. They don't like, they're not friends with us. They don't just talk to us like any other person. And I'm like, that is wild to me. I was like, you're the coolest person ever. I was like, every time I go to work, I'm like, is she working today? Because frick yeah, like she's so awesome. And then like, yeah, like it's just mind blowing to me that like, yeah, like with the racism, like that kind of thing, like we're just treating humans as humans. What the heck? What's the difference? Why would it matter once Raynell says, well, I'm Indigenous? Why would they say, oh, well, that's really great that you're here now? Like, why wasn't it great before? Like, what the hell are you talking about? You know, like it doesn't make any sense. And I just like I put out a post about wanting more Indigenous guests only because of the fact that I want their voices heard. Like I want people to listen to them. I don't like stop silencing people. Stop telling people who can talk and who can't talk. Let everybody talk and let everybody tell you their story. And that's the thing. It's like people don't give them like I don't know. Not there's just still so much separation, and I don't want there to be any separation. I just want there to be a whole. And when it comes to this kind of advocacy, we should all be together as a whole. And like me, I'm Italian. Like I'm from probably like the most, I'm going to get so much crap for saying this, but I'm probably from like the most racist nationality ever. Like Italians are so racist, it's insane. And they stick to themselves and they don't want to talk to nobody else and like and whatever, and they're like this big Italian thing, and my dad is like the least Italian man you'll ever meet in your life. So it's like I wasn't even brought up Italian in the sense of what an Italian would be like. And yeah, it's just yeah, I guess I'm not really like trying to toot my own horn here, but like when you just treat people like people, like, and that's what I do, and that's what my dad does, and like that's just kind of like building connections. You look past absolutely everything, and you just, if people could do that, if only people could do that, it would just be so much, the world would be so much of a better place. But yeah, it kind of threw me off guard. I'm thinking to myself, you've lived in Southern Ontario your whole life, and I'm your first white friend. That's nuts. So I guess it's not just Thunder Bay, it's everywhere, but yeah, pretty crazy.
It is. But Thunder Bay was named, I believe it was last year, we were named by the federal government as a hot spot for racism.
Oh,
So when the federal government recognizes your city as such,
we're a hot
you
spot for a lot more
gotta
than
take
just
notice.
racism, too.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. We're a good cautionary tale, right? So yeah, there's lots to be said that's good about Thunder Bay, but I do think we also have blinders on when it comes to the hard stuff, right? We don't necessarily want to lean into that because it is hard and it is really hard work. But to your point, we all need to come together on this. And again, I keep hammering home, the like just using the example of the people living out in homeless encampments right now, you're on the same team. You
Yeah.
just don't know it yet. But we're on the same team. And I think that probably the same could be said about people who are active in their addiction. I'm not talking about the Saturday night dabblers who go out and party a little bit. I'm talking about people who are truly active in the addiction and they are feeling the impacts of it. I guarantee you they don't want to be there. I guarantee it.
Oh,
So again, we're on the same team,
yeah.
but how we support them when they are in active use often determines the trajectory that they're going to take, right? And so we need to make sure that all pathways are open to them, that all things are on the table, and that all options and opportunities are ready for them when they're ready for them.
Yeah. And how sad is that, right now when you're saying your dad saying like he didn't want you, he didn't say anything because he didn't want you to feel the effects of your Indigenous status. Like that is
Mhm.
wild to me, like because he didn't want you to have those barriers and that Holly's talking about just now. Like how sad. Like, and it's just, yeah, it just I didn't know that. You just said it on here. I did not know that before this, but yeah, like that's
Yeah.
wild. That's wild to me. It's totally wild. Like,
Wild. Yeah. He was trying to protect his baby from the impact of racism.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
How sad is that? How sad is that that actually ever has to be a parent conversation? And I know it's one that Raynell, like, your son is just like becoming a teenager here, and there's going to be conversations that you're going to have to hold with him about his indigeneity and about how he carries himself out in the community, and that he might have to think or act a little bit differently than his white friends, simply by virtue of the color of his skin. And that is a conversation parents should not have to have with their children, but they do. And again, it's a privilege for me as a white mom. I didn't have to have that conversation with my kid, right?
Yeah. That's so
But we
sad.
forget that. We forget that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know my dad, even with the underground, he got a lot of hate back in the day when he first started the underground. And
Yeah.
it was a lot of, oh, why are you helping all those indigenous kids? Why are you just, doing all that? Why are you teaching them how to fight so that they can go out and just start, beating people up and blah, 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 blah. And then now, finally, when people have realized that boxing is an outlet and boxing is a positive outlet, now
Yeah.
that's not being said anymore. But my dad experienced all of that. Oh, I'm not supporting
Yeah.
those. They get tons of money. I'm not supporting you because you're just supporting Native people. Like what? Like
Yeah.
it's sad. It's just it's really sad. And yeah, and not that he doesn't get a ton of support because my dad does get like Thunder Bay has the hugest heart for my dad, and like I love you all for it. It's amazing. But yeah, but he still gets a lot of hate and a lot of just I guess it happens to the people who are like I put a post out yesterday. I don't think that you can truly say that you are enacting real change if you do not come up against hate and resistance. And I tagged Raynell in it because, you know, like you, Holly, like my father, like a lot of people that are trying to do something different, we're going to get the pushback, we're going to get the hate, we're going to get the comments, we're going to get the resistance. And you know what? It means we're doing something right and, meaningful. And I think that that's what we should all hold proud in ourselves. Um, and the fact that, we want all all pathways, all people to have that. Like we're not limiting it to anybody. It's everybody. Like we want to.
Equity of access, right? We
Yes,
want to see equity in our communities. So yeah, we continue to fight the fight because what's the alternative, right?
exactly.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
I don't know, Raynell, if you want to wrap it up for us. I know we have another recording to do very shortly, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Um, so I guess like what can I guess like we can wrap it up, I think, with like one kind of like final question. So Holly, so for our listeners, who want to kind of like maybe get involved or become stronger allies in some of the areas that we're working with in regards to like marginalized communities, supporting marginalized communities, and challenging stigma in their own kind of circles, what advice would you give them?
great question.
Ooh. Oh, you've stumped me. I'm very rarely at a loss for words. I think that probably one of the best things that I ever did was I read this book in university called Becoming an Ally. And it was written by a woman named Anne Bishop. And one of the concepts that she talks about is in terms of like sort of understanding your own privilege is understanding what rooms you go into where you are oppressed and which rooms you go into where you might be an oppressor, right? Meaning like you're the dominant culture in that room. And then understanding your role in both of those, right? So when I walk into a room filled with marginalized people who, maybe I serve, who are maybe being a little bit shy and aren't less necessarily sharing their voices, then my job is not to speak for them. That is not my job. My job is to invite them into the conversation, right? So I might say, you know what? Yesterday, Billy Bob, I was talking to you and you had this really important thing to share, right? So that invites him to say something, right? And so that's an example of good allyship. And then the other side of it is where, maybe I'm in a room full of people who are like oppressing. So my job then is to be bold, to be courageous, and to speak up. So sitting in those rooms where you maybe don't have a lot of friends in the room, but you have something that is like really, really important to share, that is going to have an impact on community, or maybe a decision is being made that's going to have a negative impact on community. Suspending your need for self-protection, and putting it out there, putting it on the line, right? And so I would say, like, understand your privilege, understand what gifts and assets you take, but also understand your vulnerabilities, and plan for it. Plan for both. Plan how you can be the best possible ally you can be, and know that it isn't up to you to run around saying, I'm an ally of this community. The community will tell you when they think you're an ally,
Right.
Yes.
That's
right?
awesome.
Until then, it's not up to you.
That was an awesome ending. And what's the name of the author? Because I wrote it down. Becoming an Ally. What's the name of the author?
It's Anne Bishop. It was one of those things that was just sort of like mind blowing for me when I was in school. The concept of the deserving poor was one of those ones that's carried with me. Like I went to school a million years ago,
Yeah.
and this, like, that has always stayed with me. Is that we like our deserving. We think of the deserving poor as, people who are just like so beaten down by life, right? And we like them a certain flavor, right? And then the other one was this becoming an ally, right? And again, we don't get to tell people we're an ally. The community will tell us when and if they feel we are an ally. You can be a friend to the community, but you're not necessarily an ally.
Right. Right. That is awesome. That was an awesome ending. That was a great ending message. I love that.
I think so too.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, Holly, for joining us. What a great conversation. Um, got some good weird stories, thrown in there, and my part. But yeah, no, it was awesome. Thank you so much for being here with us. And I'll let Raynell, say the last words.
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I just wanted to say thanks to everyone for tuning in on this episode, and I hope that you found it as insightful as I did. Like I said at the beginning, like I look at Holly as like my mentor, and I've learned so much from her, and yeah, I'll continue learning from her. I think she's amazing, and I hope you guys really enjoyed the conversation. And to Holly, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us and sharing your insights and your experiences. And I think it was a super powerful episode, and I'm really happy that we all got to you got to be a part of this journey with us. So thank you so much.
definitely.
Thank you. Super proud of both of you. You guys are just doing amazing stuff. And I hear about navigating new narratives all the time in the community. Love what you're doing. And I can't wait to see how you continue to grow this. So congratulations to both of you. And what a nice way to spend a Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks so
Bye.
much.
Thank you so
All
much.
right. Bye.
Take care.